For me, the Sixth Symphony is perhaps one of the most special ones to perform. It's really a personal story for me because it's the symphony I liked the least for the longest amount of time. And I remember one of my teachers, Kurt Mazur, told me, "My young conductor, you will figure out one day that in fact it's probably the best." And he was absolutely right. And because of now my feeling about it, it also was the most daunting for me to record. Because I think we live in a society, we live in a time in which sensationalism is the currency of today. If I don't do my hair more crazy, some people don't like it. If I don't jump up and down on the podium, some people like it less. And if I don't do crazy things in my life and make sensations, it's not as interesting. And the Sixth Symphony of Beethoven, for me, is this work which sits in a very precarious place. If you go a little too slow, or leave it be a little too much, it's pedantic and it's slow and it's boring and doesn't do anything. You move a little bit over to the other direction, just a little bit, and it's glib and meaningless and affectatious. It's very difficult to perform this symphony and to record it because it is the symphony that most has to be true to itself without any modification. And that is really difficult to manage nowadays. I think as a human being of 2019, as a society, as an orchestra, as everything, we just don't work that way. We want everything to be the most of this or the least of that or whatever it is. And to leave something to be true to its own nature without altering it is really against the mentality of the 21st century. And yet this symphony requires exactly that treatment, in my opinion. It is a symphony that has a great deal to do with the life cycle. The symphony begins with such a simple melody, and for me, it's like a little child just coming into the world, so naive, so happy, so unsure of anything, but these rhythms, or simple things. It's the view of the world from a very simple perspective and being absolutely immersed by its beauty and incredibleness. And as is usually the case with people, we become older and we get more romantic and more aware of ourselves, and comes the second movement, and it's, for me, the first expressions of love of life, love of nature, love of the world, love of self, and it has this unbelievable flow. There's a passage at the end of the second movement, a cadenza, if you will, for flute, oboe, and clarinet, where Beethoven writes for these bird sounds to be played. It was a moment when he wanted to hear the birds sing in their natural environment, and he put it into the symphony. I think he wanted a person who has never heard the birds before to know what the birds sound like, to use an expression that Gustav Mahler used to say about his symphonies. When you come to the third movement, then I find this to be a movement of great youth and vigor. It's very much akin to going to the beer hall and hanging out with friends and getting rowdy and running just because you can. And you have youth and fire and everything that is wonderful about being young and alive. And as is always the case in life, time goes on, a storm comes. And they are devastating and catastrophic, but no storm lasts forever. The clouds always go, and the sun comes up the next day. But if I continue to use the allegory of human life, I come back to a very pivotal moment in Beethoven's life when he wrote his Heiligenstadt Testament that I spoke about in the Second and Third Symphony, where he talks about his desire to affirm life, to affirm humanity with his music. And here we are at the end of the storm, knowing that it's the end. Like all of us, we will meet an end. And yet somehow it's okay. Here is Beethoven, older, less able to hear, more alone, and more pain than he had been before. And he experiences a storm, and yet he still affirms, yeah, the storm was terrible, but how beautiful it has been to live. And for me, that's the great point of that last movement. How wonderful it is to have ever lived.